What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Thank you all for the support lately. Witch Queen was crazy. Season of the Haunted is here. Solar 3.0 is off to a bang, with it already getting some nice little buffs via the TWAB that came out today, actually. But this video isn't going out until Saturday, which is June 4th. Now, in this video here, we're going to be talking about a Titan Solar 3.0 build that I'm sure a lot of others have been seeing going around, but it is by far one of the most broken and easy ways to go through PvE content, especially for those Titan mains, because you're used to it. But right here, we're going over a banging Solar 3.0 build for our Titan. So first off, we're going to go over the weapons for this build right here. First off, we got our Submission SMG, which I also had in my Hunter video with Subsistence Frenzy. This thing absolutely slaps for a machine gun in our primary slot here. I love the combination of Subsistence Frenzy as well. Now, pairing that up, we have Cartesian Coordinate with Vorpal on it. This thing absolutely shreds for a fusion rifle. Very good at clearing some of those more heavy adds when we don't have our throwing hammer up. This thing does a good amount of damage on bosses as well when we're out of Galahorn. And then once again, we got our king of DPS for our rockets here. Add Clear Menace, the Galahorn. Always a go-to for PvE content. Now, there is a little different thing that I can switch it up to. Sometimes instead of running Galahorn and Cartesian Coordinate, I'll run Tiku's Divination, the bow, as well as my Cataclysmic Linear Fusion Rifle for that pair with nice solar synergy. Plus, with adaptive mutations on this bad boy, it does well with breaking some of those other shields, just in case we're going into something that has other shields and match game on. But saying that, most of the time I am playing with Cartesian Coordinate and Galahorn on. Now, moving on to our subclass that we are going to be playing right here, which is very important to this build. We're going to be using our Hammer of Soul Sunbreaker class. So when we throw our hammers upon impact, they shatter into explosive molten shards. Very good at add clear, and it really isn't bad for DPS, especially mixing it with these aspects and fragments that we have. Now, it's up to you for your barricade and jump. Me personally, for PvE, love Towering Barricade, way safer than our Rally Barricade right here. Now, for our grenade and our melee, for this build, we are going Solar Hammer. So when we throw it, we can get that nice heavy damage on enemies, and when we can pick this back up and just continuously throw this bad boy around, plus when we pick it up, we get that Cure buff for Solar, which you are healed in a burst of Solar Light. Grenade, like I have in my other solar builds, we're gonna go with the Thermite Grenade. Just feel like it is the best solar grenade that we have, with that nice rolling wave of solar energy. Moving on to our two aspects that we have right here. First off, we have Roaring Flames, so final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solar abilities, and it stacks up to 3 times. So this is perfect. This is why we have Roaring Flames on, to mix with our Throwing Hammer, so we can get those 3 defeats with the Throwing Hammer, pick it back up, and then we're going to be doing crazy DPS, as well as just wiping out any red bar or even orange bar enemy that we might have. Pairing with that, we have Soul Invictus, so solar ability final blows, which is our Throwing Hammer, or our Hammer of Soul super impacts, and defeating scorched targets, which we will be getting scorched targets via our grenade and our other sunspots. All of these create sunspots. Your abilities regenerate faster, and your super drains more slowly when you are standing in those sunspots. Like I said, sunspots apply scorch and deal damage to targets inside of them. Entering a sunspot applies restoration as well, which is super key for staying alive in itself. Mixing that with the sunspots that help with our ability regeneration, plus with having the cure buff from picking up our hammer, it's basically impossible to die as long as you have that hammer going. Next, we move on to our fragments here. First off, we have Ember of Solence. So Radiant and Restoration effects have an increased duration, and we're getting those from our hammer mixed with our aspects here. So it's super nice to have that Radiant and Restoration buff. Next off, we have Ember of Ashes, so we apply more Scorch stacks to targets, which is good because of this right here. So defeating those Scorch targets help us create Sunspots. Next off right here, our powered melee attack against combatants make you and your nearby allies radiant, so that pairs perfectly with the Solace granting us that longer radiant and restoration, and then throw in that hammer. We're basically always going to have a charged melee because it comes back to us when we pick up the hammer, so this is easy to have this thing always proc. Last but not least, here we have the newest one that was just released today, actually, after we completed that community challenge together, which is Ember of Empyrean. So solar weapons or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant. So once we get it procced, our hammer's going to keep it going, as well as all of our solar weapon defeats, making us basically unstoppable. So basically every single time we throw that hammer at an enemy, we're going to be creating sunspots, restoring ourselves via that buff, having Cure, which is also a buff from picking up our hammer, as well as Radiant from that power melee destruction. Super crazy combination where it is very hard to die as this Titan as long as you have that hammer on you. More so than even the DPS side of the hammer, which is also bonkers because of our stacking of that Roaring Flames mixed with our exotic Syntheseps. Now for our armor, we do have two different ways we can play this. If you want to go that DPS route like I do for most of my encounters here, you can throw on the Syntheseps so we have increased melee range and being a buff damage when we are surrounded by enemies, so it's super good with doing that crazy DPS on bosses and some of those champions and powerful enemies. If you're purely going for survivability, instead of running Syntheseps, run our Lordly Splendor Helm, so those sunspots that we create have improved restoration, and we drop one when we are critically wounded or on a barricade cast. So this is also a good way to get those extra sunspots and very good at survivability for encounters rather than using Syntheseps for higher DPS and that kind of crazy ad clear, if you will. So talking about our mods that really make this build the way to go, especially with high DPS that I have going on with this build here. So first off, on our helmet, we're going to have Well of Life because we're going to be creating solar elemental wells everywhere via our melee and our grenade. This right here gives us that nice regeneration for a short period of time when we pick up that solar elemental well. Moving on right here to our Syntheseps, I'm going to actually throw on High Energy Fire, which will come into play later on in the build because we're becoming charged with light via those elemental wells. Moving on to our chest piece, Well Maker, right here for melees. Powered melee combatant final blows spawn elemental wells matching your subclass. So that's perfect because we have our infinite hammer that as long as we never lose it or throw it off the edge of the map, we're going to be creating solar elemental wells basically every single time we throw that hammer because it's always going to be charged in a powered melee. Moving on to our boots right here, another way that we are creating our nice elemental wells for solar here is elemental ordnance, so defeating combatants with a grenade spawns elemental wells matching subclass energy, so more solar elemental wells for us to get us to proc a few different things. Next off, we have that elemental charge, which is one of the things that we proc, so this is where we become charged with light by picking up elemental wells, which we created via our elemental ordnance, as well as our melee well maker. Now, becoming charged with light applies us for that high energy fire, where we do extra damage for combatants using one stack of charged with light. So this is just kind of a DPS king build right here. On top of it all, we have Classy Restoration, which is a broken artifact mod this season. Activating your solar class ability generates restoration. So every single time we throw our shield down, we're going to be getting this Classy Restoration, proccing restoration for us once again, making it very, very difficult to defeat us as enemies inside of the PvE realm. This is a walking, talking solar tank, if you will. So in the gameplay behind me, you can kind of see how this build works. It is very good for going through doing the new dungeon, what I went through and did my solo run with. Very good for just wiping out ads, and then when you get your super, you can pop it, throwing it, creating those sunspots everywhere, doing a great way to clear ads. And if you keep throwing your hammers at a target, it will just keep spawning those nice old sunspots, which damage the target, which is also good for DPS. So the combination of this build is kind of crazy and very, very hard to die. I'm sure you've seen a variation of it one way or the other, because it was even popular beforehand with the bonk hammer aspect, but this one right here with that restoration and radiant being able to be procced just from our hammer throw and popping our barricade is absolutely crazy, and we just get health back like it's no one's business. So all you Titan mains out there definitely have to go give this a shot and try this build out. Absolutely, absolutely broken for the PvE realm. Very easy to stay alive with again. So hopefully y'all like this build. Like I said, give it a shot. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.